Welcome to London in the 1830s, the largest city on earth, standing proud yet silently battling an invisible enemy within. This great metropolis was not under siege by foreign armies, nor was it ravaged by the brutality of devastating open warfare. Yet every single morning, the city began a ritual that created an atmosphere thick enough to slowly poison its own existence. This darkening sky was not caused by a natural disaster or the wrath of nature, but by human hands and industry. It was simply the way this massive urban machine operated, churning out productivity while suffocating the very people who kept it running. By the early 19th century, London was more than just a place to live. It had become a colossal living organism. The roaring factories served as the beating heart, pumping life and commerce through the city with a relentless and rhythmic force. The winding cobblestone streets and the flowing River Thames acted as the veins, carrying the lifeblood of trade across the empire. The towering brick chimneys functioned as the lungs, but instead of breathing in fresh air, they exhaled thick clouds of soot. Every single day, from hundreds of thousands of narrow vents, London breathed out a heavy blanket of dark and choking coal smoke. Starting in the 1820s, black coal became the absolute foundation upon which every aspect of urban life was heavily built. It was used in every home to keep families warm against the damp chill, burning brightly in millions of iron grates. It fueled the massive boilers that powered the textile mills, driving the relentless machinery that defined the new industrial age economy. It fed the hungry fireboxes of steam locomotives that cut through the countryside, connecting the capital to the rest of Britain. It was essential for the production of iron and steel, allowing the creation of goods that were exported around the globe. Surprisingly, nobody in that era referred to this phenomenon as pollution, nor did they see it as a threat to health. Instead, the people and leaders of the time called it progress, a visible testament to the technological might of the empire. The billowing black smoke was interpreted as a clear sign of economic growth, signaling that business was booming and industries thriving. The prevailing belief was that a city without smoke was a city without work, a place of poverty and economic stagnation. Therefore, the darker the sky above the streets, the fuller the pockets of the merchants and industrialists who ran the city. By the time the 1830s arrived, the smoke no longer drifted away with the wind, but hung heavy over everything. It stagnated in the humid air, creating a dense and suffocating blanket that refused to lift, regardless of the weather conditions. It settled thickly on the slate rooftops, turning the vibrant red clay tiles into a uniform and depressing shade of black. It crept into the narrow and winding alleyways, where the sunlight struggled to reach, making the shadows deeper and more ominous. It even invaded the privacy of bedrooms, drifting through cracks in the windows to coat furniture in a fine layer of grit. Most dangerously, it settled deep within the lungs of every citizen, from the wealthiest aristocrat to the poorest street sweeper outside. The bright sun was reduced to nothing more than a pale, blurry smear of light, struggling to pierce the grey gloom. London seemed to exist in a perpetual state of twilight, living through a dreary afternoon that lasted for years on end. Landmarks like St. Paul's Cathedral became ghostly silhouettes, barely visible through the thick and acrid haze that swallowed the city whole. The air tasted of sulphur and ash, a constant sensory reminder of the industrial fire that burned without ceasing day and night. During the 1840s, medical professionals began to document alarming trends in their journals, noting a sharp rise in specific illnesses. They observed that respiratory diseases were spreading rapidly across the population, affecting the young and old with equal and ruthless severity. The death toll during the winter months became unusually high, as the cold air trapped the poisonous smoke closer to the ground. Factory workers were dying at shockingly young ages, their bodies exhausted and their breathing compromised by years of inhaling coal dust. Yet there was no single clear cause that they could isolate, as the concept of industrial smog was not yet understood. The smoke was simply everywhere, a constant backdrop to life, making it impossible to pinpoint a specific source of the sickness. There was no single villain or specific factory to blame, because the entire infrastructure of the city was the source itself. Every household fire and every industrial furnace contributed to the problem, creating a collective cloud that hung over the entire metropolis. As the situation worsened, a strange phenomenon occurred. where the symptoms of disease began to be accepted as a normal condition. When every person on the street was coughing, the act of coughing ceased to be seen as a symptom of illness. When everyone struggled to catch their breath, shortness of breath transformed from a medical concern into a mundane fact of daily life. By the middle of the 19th century, London was a city that did not realise it was suffering from a chronic disease. The citizens had adapted their lives and their expectations to fit the gloom, wearing darker clothes to hide the falling soot. They had forgotten what a clear day looked like, because the vibrant blue sky had vanished from their memory long ago. Artists began to paint the city in shades of grey and brown, capturing the atmospheric reality that had become their world. Even those who tried to escape to the outskirts found that the sprawling smog followed them, expanding as the city grew. All of this suffering occurred decades before any clean air laws existed, in a time of unregulated and explosive industrial expansion. Surprisingly, this dirty air did not cause the city to collapse immediately, nor did it stop the wheels of commerce turning. Instead, it simply shortened the lives of its inhabitants, shaving years off their existence in exchange for the city's economic prosperity. It was a silent and slow killer, working unnoticed in the background while the city celebrated its achievements and global dominance. This era leaves us with a haunting calculation about the true cost of industrialization and the price paid in human health. It poses a difficult question for the future about how much we are willing to sacrifice in the name of progress. We must ask ourselves what economic advancement is truly worth if the very air we breathe becomes a danger to us. The story of London in the 19th century serves as a dark reflection of humanity's struggle to balance nature and industry. It stands as a historical warning that innovation without regulation can lead to consequences that are both invisible and devastatingly fatal. Although the air has cleared today, the echoes of that choked and gasping city still resonate in our modern environmental challenges. From the coal fires of the poor to the steam engines of the rich, London poisoned itself to fuel its rise. It was a magnificent, terrible, and toxic masterpiece of human engineering, a city that thrived while slowly suffocating its own creators. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the smoky past, uncovering the hidden costs of the Industrial Revolution's glory. Please subscribe to AI Historical Revival for more deep dives into the past. See you in the next video. Goodbye, friends.